Just trying to add some levity here, okay? So everybody remembers that we have ELBO. ELBO is the acronym for the 4 models, right? You take the W off the word ELBO. We have economic model, lead generation model, budget model, and organizational model, okay? So think about what are some of the things that you would like to discuss and unpack, and where do you want us to scuba dive as we move along, okay? So I'll give it one more chance. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to the list of, I hope that we cover this today?
I just want to cover more organization. That's really my weakness, I guess.
I'm not going to do very well with this drawing. Okay, that's supposed to be org model. Hope you can see that.
Org model, I see it. Org model.
That looks like org motel or something. I don't know what I did there, but okay. Does anybody else have anything?
Definitely, okay. If we can touch on like the economic model, just I don't know, just see where it takes us. Just and I'll see where we go with that.
Okay, so since y'all both kind of stood out there and said something, what's one aspect of these that you feel like you either know the least about, the most about, that you would want to make sure we touch on, or maybe you know you've got an aha that you want to add when we get to it?
I guess I attempted to try to do something organizational wise with my business for about 3 years when I had my partner, business partner, and it didn't work out. I think maybe because our personalities kind of stepped in, it was a personality issue more than anything. It wasn't a trust issue because I trusted her explicitly, but I think it's because she was also a strong personality as well as I was. So when trying to tap into setting up the structure of my business, I guess, trying to add to it or help it to move forward to add to it, I guess maybe I should have gone more with the assistant or transaction coordinator or someone like that. And I guess I just have a hard time finding somebody I can trust my business. Okay, that's the hard thing, because that person, I trusted her explicitly, but with her being extremely intelligent and 2 degrees, she just had her own mindset of what she wanted to do.
Okay. So I'm going to put CV right there too. We'll get around to that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you for that. Kim, anything you want to add to anything specific to the economic model?
Well, I'm thinking more, Jeremy, with the COVID-19 pandemic, is like hitting the numbers and how to revamp and not regroup just from just like regroup with the numbers and how to, redo the numbers kind of sort of. Does that make any sense? Like, I don't really know how to.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
How to make up for the downfall, you're saying, or for the gap? Like how to fill in the gap? Because this is like a shortfall gap, I guess, for some.
Right. And we'll talk about that too. And there's my ferocious guard dog poodle, so apologies there.
I have the same issue.
Must be getting a delivery from somebody right now. Okay. Apologies for that in advance. All right, so let's go to this. All right, so I always like to start here. Does anybody want to read the first line for me?
Where? Jeremy.
First line from where?
First line from where? Click new share.
Oh, new share?
And then whatever's highlighted blue is what we see. So click on the screen that you want it. There we go.
You got it now?
Yes, sir.
All right, my first time, so bear with me here. Thank God for Katie. All right.
Yeah, that's the truth. Thank you, Kate.
For a lot of different reasons. Thank God for Katie. Okay, who would like to read the first line?
Well,
Go ahead.
at KWR 504, we are seen by the greater New Orleans area and by KWRI as the professional environment for realtors.
Okay, so is this true?
Yes.
Okay, will it be true in the future?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so who would like to read how we do this? Next line.
We accomplish this daily in seeking mastery of growth, production, technology, and profitability, deeply rooted in the culture of the WRYCQT.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So that's the how, right? That's the how. And what I would like to challenge each of you on, this vision statement that I've created, that middle sentence is designed for you to always go ahead and self-grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for those 4 items. And also in culture, how you show up in culture. Grade yourself through all 5 of those with a 10 that you've gone to mastery on something, and a 1, it's not even on your radar, or somewhere in between, right? So every time I put this vision statement up, or every time you see it, it should be a conversation starter for yourself and for somebody on the leadership team to say, you know, I'm kind of at a 7 right now with production. I'm at a 3 with technology. I could definitely learn a lot more about profitability of my business, but I feel like I'm okay on that. I'm kind of a 6 or a 7. I really have been stagnant. My growth has not been where I wanted to be, so I'm at a 5 there. And all of these could be great conversational pieces with either your coach or someone on the leadership team or one of your peers to say, what would it take to improve any of these categories a number score or 2? Right? So this is always here to be trying to gauge yourself off of how do you show up as the professional in real estate? And how do you make sure you stay in culture of the Y4C teachings? Okay? And I'm gonna call on Deidre for the last one. Go ahead, Dee.
Our customers feel how intensely we care about each other and their real estate needs.
Okay, so that's the why.
Y'all
Right?
heard me?
We did.
Okay.
We did. So that's the why. That's why we seek mastery, and that's why we show off as professional, right? It's because we care. We care about each other. We care about how we show up. Okay. All right. So, okay. So somebody give me their favorite one of these.
Success results through others.
Okay. Tell me about why that's your favorite.
Because I believe that we're all here to help each other out, right? We're all here to work for God. And to me, success to me is when we all achieve, not just me, you know, when we all achieve together.
Love that. Somebody else want to give one?
Integrity.
Yeah.
Integrity.
Win-win.
Integrity, win-win. So tell me about integrity. Tell me about integrity.
Integrity is just being honest, just having strong morals, principles, and just doing things right.
Love that. Okay, who said win-win?
I did. Win-win or no deal. In other words, no loser in any transaction, to where our, you know, like the old way, it's like a win-lose, but in the way we said, it's that everyone wins.
And how do we go about trying to educate someone who's not in our culture when you're doing a transaction that's what we should be aiming for? Are you purposeful in trying to tell another agent that you and I are on the same team? We're co-op agents. How do we make this a win for your person and mine?
Yes.
Right. And taking into account too, all parties involved, in seeing how to address the objections of both parties or all parties. And also with the other agent, letting them know the deal's not between us, but it's between the seller and the buyer. And we want to make it to where it's comfortable for both.
Yeah. So we're the pathway, right? That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else have one?
I love our value, God, family, business. It's especially coming from the work world. I just think that is so important. And what better way and what more effective way to do business than to have God first, your family as your why, and then with both of those tend to business.
I love that. And I do believe that that is our just cause as a company, is our value of God, family, and way after that, and almost letters that you can't even read on the screen. Oh, then business. Yeah. So we are, as we should talk about for most of our meetings, how is God moving in your life? How is God moving in our culture? How is God moving in our market center? How does God move in your business? Are you in constant prayer right now for everybody around us?
Yeah.
Yes, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of people who need that right now. And I think when it comes to your own sphere of influence, the people that you touch in business or people you touch in life, I think now is the time to be telling people more about God and our experience of how that shows up in our life, in our workplace.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's a real opportunity here. There's an old saying from people who have been in a war: there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. Right? They all understand that they're just one shell away from it being over for them. Right? So they're all very much in tune with their God. Okay.
I think this time right now has taught us all to be better listeners. And I think that not just better listeners and communicators, but we should take this time to be more in deep thought, slow down a little bit, and really listen to what's going on out there. I mean, I just had a phone call by accident on one of my properties that I'm working on. I just can't even believe, after just making 2 phone calls, I got to the source of the people who had the contract with this big neighborhood with all the windows, and it's going to make or break the deal. And then when I talked to the guy, it was hard to get. He right away was very defensive. You know, they're stressed out right now. And what maybe wouldn't have been able to send somebody out to inspect the windows, but I sat and listened to him and understood. And then we talked for a good while. And after that, he was like, you know what, for $65, I'm gonna go ahead and come out there for you tomorrow. So just be calm, not react as much when we get pushback from people we're talking to right now, right away. Because I think I'm hearing aggression in some people's voices because they're frustrated and they're stressed out and everything else. So I'm just taking a step back to listen and say, I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm so sorry, you know, and give them that warm, fuzzy feeling that we're all going through this at the same time.
That's really powerful, Liz. Thanks for sharing that. And I'll be vulnerable for a second with you guys, if that's okay. I had on Monday was my day when I finally kind of hit rock bottom. Has anybody had that happen yet through this, where you're just like, yes, you're just really, you're just at that point where you've had enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're just like, okay, I get it. I need to truly let go of everything that I thought mattered to me and everything else that I was gunning for and whatever. And it's just time to embrace this and try to figure out, what are we meant to learn, right?
Correct.
So I just kind of bottomed out, and now I'm working my way back up through that. And hey, you know what? I'm a recovering person now from Monday at this point. So, and I get there through having great conversations with you guys and others. So thank y'all so much for being on with me today. I appreciate that. My favorite of the Y4 CTTs, as I've told you before, and Liz, you just kind of touched on it, is communication. Seek first to understand. Mm-hmm. Most human beings seek first to reply. They listen to reply or to respond because they just want to be heard. And especially in this environment, when we're not having as much communication as we're used to having with people, sometimes that need just to be heard can really overwhelm anything at this point. So, okay, so not going to go too much into this, but I think everybody knows where they fall with what's the one thing that they're focusing on. So keep this in mind when you're trying to stay authentic to who you are. Know where you show up and where you sometimes have a hiccup in these 6 steps. Okay, so you could take a screenshot of this, or it's pretty easy to find online if you don't have it. Okay, and then here, this is something I've shown you guys before. I think this is extremely appropriate for where we are. Right now, it could be a temptation to try to dive into your financial business health at a really high level and figure out how you're going to find a way to earn money. I think in order for us to pivot away from what we know, it really is required to start here and work your way this way, as opposed to trying to work your way here this way. So start with God, get yourself full, get your cup full, do something physical every day. Get out there and ride your bike, run, walk the levee, there's so much online content for training that you can get to your house right now if you're used to going to a gym and you can't do that right now. There's a lot of opportunity for this right now. There's a lot of time, right? So work your path of God, physical health, and then see how you feel at that point. And then fill your cup with the people that matter to you. And when you get here, it might give you the ability to think clearer about how you're going to pivot your business and what you're going to do with your sphere to try to gain market share in this environment. So I would highly recommend that everybody just think of it this way, because it's a repetitive cycle as we go. Okay. Any questions about that?
No.
No.
Good. Okay.
Right.
I love all y'all on this phone call.
I
love you too, girl.
Okay. Now we're going to jump into models course. And Katie, tell me if it shows up again. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Millionaire Real Estate models course?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So what are the 4 models? I just gave you the cheat on that. Remember I said this, right?
The
Elbows.
elbow. The elbow.
Okay, so can everybody pretty much just yell it out right now? What is the first one? E is what?
Economics.
L.
Lead generation.
Lead generate.
B.
Budgeting.
O.
Organization.
Do I need to make y'all stand up and do this like YMCA style?
No.
No. All right. Yes, do it. Come on, Deidre, do it. Come on, get it going. All right. E-L-B-O.
Wait, how we gonna do E? Wait. E.
L. I don't know how to do B.
B.
All right. Good deal.
I just got an arm workout.
How about Simon?
Now, remember that a model is nothing more than the science of business. It's a collection of previous attempts to figure something out. And then we agree that certain ways to do something prove to be better than others. And then that turns into a model of business or a model of behavior, whatever the case may be. So just a quick little definition of there of what is a model. A model is something where lots of people have come before us and said, if you do it this way, you'll get reproducible, better results than if you don't. Okay?
And we don't have to reinvent the model, right?
No. In fact, I would argue that you should not show any creativity until you can score yourself really high on all 4 of these models. Okay? All right. Master proven models before creativity. All right. Why build a business?
Well,
Why?
why? That's our purpose. The purpose gives you a purpose. I mean, if you're in business, that's your whole purpose.
Yep. Okay.
Create profit.
Create profit. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you
help others.
Long-term,
others while helping ourselves.
Create relationships.
Love that.
It gives you the ability to just grow infinitely without some sort of cap there or some kind of ceiling. You can grow. Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you call a model where the primary operative must perform a service to get compensation? You call that a practice. Think of a doctor or an attorney. They must be present to perform the service in order for them to generate any income, right? So a doctor can't leverage themselves to somebody else to do their work for them. Neither can an attorney. So what I would challenge you in your thinking is that most of us on this call are running a real estate practice where we are the primary fiduciary. We have to get every aspect of the business done. If you ever want to start moving towards a business model to where you could actually make money and you're not doing all the work, that's what this is all about, If you're trying to create a business that you don't have to do everything, and maybe even someday if you're hyper successful, you don't have to do anything, it's all right here. Right? Okay. So what do you call a model where the primary operative is absent and still earn income? That's a business. Okay. So if you think about how you're trying to build your life by design, where do you fall? Are you time or are you money? What's most important to you in your world right now? Do you have lots of time to commit to your business because you're trying to earn a lot of money? Or are you already earning a lot of money in your business and now you're trying to find a way to gain time? Where are you right now? Self-identify where you are so that you can understand where you need to spend effort to get education to get better. Okay?
Well, right now we have time.
Right.
We do we not?
Yeah.
Right? And I think even if anybody was already trying to move down that road, now you've got a blessing of more of it. Right? Okay. Okay, please tell me everybody's seen this before.
Yes.
All right. So if we know that the primary business model that Gary Keller has created is that you first, at the base of the triangle, build your own process of lead generation, focused on the listings, which is the left side of the triangle, and then you rinse and repeat. You keep on building leads and you keep on getting more listings. You go back to getting leads, you get more listings. You go back to getting leads and you get more listings. Eventually you get to a point where you've collected too many listings, and because of so many of those listings, you've collected so many buyers, and what do you stop doing? You quit going to the base of the triangle and lead generating because you're too busy.
Correct.
Right?
That's right.
So, and I see Deidre shaking her head. Yeah, you should not ever do that, right? In a perfect world, you should never stop the base of this triangle. If anything, the other two things that are on there, listings and leverage, should be things that you would back off first.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to say no to a listing though, right? And who wants to say no to leverage they maybe already have? So everybody has to understand that we're in the business of lead generation. Gary Keller says it at every family reunion and mega camp. Everybody here has two jobs, whatever your job is, and you're a lead generator. Everybody in the whole organization has two jobs. Whatever your job currently is, realtor, leadership team, whatever, and you're a lead generator. Somehow, some way. You've got a sphere of influence that you're trying to talk to. Okay? So, once you get to a point to where you're lead generating at a good clip and it's turning into a lot of business on the listing side, and that's also generating a lot of buyer contracts for you, eventually you're going to get to a point where the only way you could get past that is to add leverage to your business. And in the organizational model, we'll go through that, okay? So what are those four lines in the pyramid of think, earn, net, and receive? What's this book called again?
Millionaire Real Estate.
Okay, So all 4 of those are, if you add the word million after each 4, first you got to think like you're a millionaire. Then you want to earn like you're a millionaire. Then you want to net like you're a millionaire. And then you want to receive like you're a millionaire. Okay? And wherever you find yourself right now, I don't care if you're just starting out or if you've been doing this for a long time, it's never a wasted exercise for you to think like a millionaire. It's never a wasted exercise. Because that's the only way that the 3 above it would ever happen. Ever. So leads and think at the base of the pyramid, you think there's like is there any, it's not subtle, right? The base of the pyramid is right there. You've got to do those 2 things at a really high level. You got to think like a millionaire and you got to lead generate like a millionaire. Otherwise, you don't get anything that's above it. Okay. Any questions about this or any ahas? Okay, cool. All right, moving on. This is the only thing that's in this presentation that's not in the Red Book, but I think it's important. This is from Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant, his 2nd book in the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, okay? People, about 90%, 95% of the country falls here. And unfortunately, there's only about 5% of the wealth in this category that you could ever get. So if you work for somebody else and you're employed by somebody else, you're doing a lot of work for very little opportunity of wealth. So as most of you have done, you say, okay, I'd like to go this way, be self-employed. And again, 95% of the population is in both of these quadrants combined, right? And now you're in this time versus money, just like you'd be here, but you've got a little bit more opportunity on the earning side than you did up here. And you're in control of your own business. And you're learning how to run your own business, right? So you're getting a good financial education going from here to here. Most people stop here. They run a real estate practice, and that's as far as they ever go. In order to go here, where, by the way, here's where all the wealth is, you've got to figure out how to bridge this gap, right? This book completely does this for you. If you read all of the testimonials in the back of this book, and if you read through all 4 models and really start to get it at a high level, they absolutely show you how to go from here to here. And if it's your intent to take advantage of where all the wealth is, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're studying this at a really high level. Because once you're here, then you've got real opportunity to finally come down into this last quadrant, which is where your money is completely working for you. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I want to live my life over here, not over here.
That's where we're all headed to.
That's right.
That's
okay.
right.
So I want everyone to be thinking about, how do I go from running a real estate practice to a real estate business? Okay. All right. Any ahas or questions from that? It's kind of basic, right?
Basic.
And I'll say this right now. The moment that you do something in lead generation where you decided to spend money to earn leads, you by default, you've moved yourself back here. Mm-hmm. You're now an employee of whatever that lead generation source is, whether it be Realtor.com leads, Zillow leads, whatever the case may be. You put yourself back here and you might not have even known it. Okay? So if you want to stay at least here and be able to own your own business, because whoever owns the leads, who owns what?
Business. They own us.
Exactly. And if they decide to charge an excessive amount for the leads that you're buying right now that you have cost justified to be worth it, what happens to your business at that point? It's built on a very unsolid foundation, very flimsy.
It's unstable, yes.
It's unstable.
Exactly.
I mean, I know some agents that are spending $1,000 a month on leads.
Absolutely.
I can't even understand that. I just can't fathom that.
Well, and look, going back to this right here, this is the game, right? So I can see how people can get confused to say, well, okay, I can lead generate with my own sphere, but what if I got outside of my own sphere and tried to find creative ways to bring in more? I get it. I'm not telling you that anything's right or wrong about lead generation. I just know what's in this book, and nowhere in there do they talk about buying leads.
Right.
What they do talk about is how to lead generate in such a way that you're in control of it and you own your own business because you own your lead generation source. Okay.
And they spam us all day long. They call us.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in this environment, right?
Right.
Yep.
They're calling all the time. Oh, I can do this for you and I can do that for you. And I'm like, yeah, for how much?
All right. Okay, so here's just that kind of a busy picture inside the MREA that shows, just as I was showing you before, about how you can go about pivoting your business, that you want to first start with God, then physical health, then mental health, and then actually start to evaluate your business health. The 4 models work in a direct pattern. Okay, so the economic model flows into the lead generation model, which flows into your budget model, which then flows into your organizational model. And then once you've mastered a certain point of production in all 4, then you actually come back here and redefine reality again. Okay, so this slide is, don't worry about everything else that's written about it. I just want you to understand that there is a flow to ELBO, E-L-B-O, E-L-B-O. Don't try to break them apart and do them out of order. You'll find yourself working upstream. Okay, they're like, if you really started here and tried to go this way, you'd feel it. Okay, all right.
And that's what a lot of agents do. Start with the money.
Absolutely.
And then end up out of the business because it didn't work for them and they're out of money.
Absolutely. Okay, does somebody want to read that slide for me? So what does Gary Keller say?
Okay, you have to move something over, Jeremy. Oh, there it is. Okay.
When I reach my plateau, I immediately analyze my models, tech, and people.
Okay, so Gary he shared with us as operating principles that he plateaued with his business, that is Keller Williams International, about 4 years ago. He got to the height of what he could do with what he was operating with, his model, his current tech, and his current people. Now he's got a model that's been adjusted somewhat, but not very much, and that'll come in the form of MREA 2 when they decide to put that out there to print. He completely changed us into a technology company to build our own tech and work out all the bugs on that and make it a better product as time goes by. And he's completely replaced his executive leadership team. Now we have guys like Jason Abrams, Mark King, Matt Green, who have replaced some of the moguls that used to be there, like John Davis and Mary Tennant and Diana Kokoska. So when you reach your plateau, you have to think about these 3 things. How good is your models, how good is your tech, and how good is the people around you? And if you don't make changes to any of those 3, you'll find that you won't get past your ceiling of achievement. I think that's a powerful quote, okay? So why are models and systems important?
They're the foundation of your business.
Yep, and Deidre, like you said, you don't have to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel, right?
Right.
Okay, give a firm foundation for future growth, makes your business scalable to any size. This one right here, I think, is something that's not often talked about, because wherever you're at right now in your real estate practice, if you use these 4 models, and every time you get to a point to where you've hit your plateau, you go back and define reality on the economic model and work that plan again, you'll find that you can make your business scalable, okay? Then offers a common language of real estate. So L-O-R-E is what?
Lower.
Lower. What is the language of real estate? Somebody give me some examples of categories that's in lore.
Y'all hear my
Well, what is that? Lead generation?
Nope.
Nope.
This is actually your scoreboard.
Oh.
So Closed sales volume, closed units, listings taken volume, those types of things that you have on your multi-year trends that you could pull at any time on your own business. That's your language of real estate. So something that's really cool in the models and systems that KWRI supplies is all that information is generated for you. You don't have to keep track of it. Okay, so use it as your scoreboard to see how is the model that you're running showing up in those categories that we track. So that's an objective measure scoreboard. Okay. Okay. Models help us achieve our goals. Yes. So avoid phrases like this. Somebody read that one.
Here's how I do it.
What's the danger of starting any conversation that way?
You're automatically putting somebody down. You're making someone feel like you're smarter than they are.
That's very appropriate. Somebody else?
Here's how you do it. It prevents you from being coachable, and you come off as knowing it, and it can leave you also.
Absolutely. So
your way is the right way too.
Yep. So you've kind of predetermined that what you discovered through your immense 200-year history as a realtor is the way to go, right? As opposed to the 75 people who are in there who did a compendium of best practices to get there, right? I'm not saying you specifically, Samantha. I'm just saying anybody that starts a conversation that way, you can tell that you're absolutely right. They've decided to not be coachable. And they're in a mode right now where that's usually as far as the conversation goes. There's not much of a conversation.
Rihanna said, elevates you over.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So I'm not saying that none of us on this call couldn't turn into Gary Keller, but we're not quite there yet. So until we prove that we can do that at a really high level, right? Perhaps we should follow what's already there.
Yeah.
Okay, and somebody read this one too.
The model doesn't work for me.
What are they really saying when they say that?
They don't want to work the model.
They haven't put the time in to really look at it. So that's when we know they haven't really put the effort in.
Correct.
Because what do we know? What do we know for sure about the model?
It works.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Yeah. And usually my next sentence when someone says that to me is, which model? Right? and by the way, can you tell me all 4 of them? Which one have you personally gone to mastery on to discover that model doesn't work? Right? So yeah. So let's all make the pact right now that we're going to stay away from that. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm away.
I have the best wife in the world, as she just brought me coffee. It's not actually from Starbucks, but I actually have. It makes me feel like it's from Starbucks. It feels kind of normal right now. So thank you.
Where's ours?
You're the best. Yeah, you know what? I'm giving it to you virtually right now. Okay, so we're all in agreement that none of us are going to start coaching calls with either of those 2 phrases. All right, good. All right, so let's jump in. Economic model is an equation for success. The economic model should do 3 basic things. Show where your income comes from, which is your gross commission income. It should show where your income goes, your expenses, and show how much remains, profit. Okay. Sounds simple, however, we find that often agents can't produce this information. So if you knew you were going into, if you want a conference and you knew that you were going to get 30 minutes with Gary Keller, would you know those 3 things before you talk to him?
Yes.
Okay.
Before you talk to Gary Keller?
Yeah. And
I better have a warning.
Like in 30 minutes, like right after our conversation here, if he called you, because maybe he's on right now listening to whether or not I can deliver his model, right? He's like, you know what, I'm going to randomly call one of these people and say, congratulations for being on Jeremy's call. You've got me for 30 minutes. So tell me what you know about your GCI, your expenses, and your profit. Show me your P&L. Show me your balance sheet. Are you ready to have that conversation about your business? Do you know your numbers that well to where you could have a powerful coaching conversation with Gary Keller? He could look at your business and he could take full advantage of that 30 minutes with you and take everything to the highest level. How cool would that be?
Very cool.
And he could show you like 7 blind spots that you have in every category, right?
Wow.
So the purpose of running this play is that although it may not be Gary Keller that does that for you, your leadership team, your operating principal, other agents in our environment, other agents in our region, outside our region, your MAPS coach, they can all have a powerful conversation with you if you already understand this and you can apply it to your own business. That's the power of this. That's the why. That's why you dig into these models and figure them out. Because then you've got that common, it really is like learning, I don't know, German or Japanese, right? How can you get coached by somebody who's fluent in either of those 2 languages if you've never tried to learn any of it? Right? You literally are starting from square one. Okay. All right. So someone tell me who feels like they've gone to mastery in the economic model. I'm going to write down some names here. So try to go one at a time. Who feels like that's the one model that you've really gone to mastery
on? I won't consider myself mastery on any. I will consider myself much better at all of them than I was a few years ago.
I'm gonna phrase it differently. Who would say that the economic model is their favorite model?
I would say that the economic model is the beginning of our models, because without the economic model, we really don't know where we're going.
Deidre, you're a perfect politician. You did a great job of not answering my question just now.
So did.
I know. So what are you asking? What are you asking?
Deidre, answer the question. Answer the question.
I love the lead generating model.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you for
like
lead
the
gen.
economic model. I'll admit. I'm a
Okay.
numbers person.
Anybody else say that their favorite is the economic model? Remember, the economic model is figuring out from a gross commission income target that you're trying to hit, how do you get there with activity? So who is so succinct in what they're doing that they would like to share some ahas as we discuss on the economic model? I got Liz. Anybody else want to chime in?
So just repeat, what
are you exactly asking for?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say the same thing. Like I'm trying to understand.
Okay, so let's go through the economic model real quick, and maybe I can get a little bit more clarity on what my question really is here. Okay, so focus on the numbers you must hit is what the economic model will extract out of you. For those of you that I've had a one-on-one coaching conversation with, we've done this and gotten down to the very nitty-gritty, right? Okay.
Right.
Focus on appointments and focus on conversion rates. So one of the things that could be missed in people who claim to lead generate at a very high level is their conversion rate might be flat out bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can collect 30 leads off of command Facebook. I can't convert any of them. Might be what they would actually say if they had an honest moment about what is their activity really yielding. Because lead generation in and of itself is not going to work very well for you if you can't convert any of them, right? Okay.
Correct.
So we really dig deep into what is a powerful conversation. when it comes to lead generation. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay. All right. So what does it cost you to take a listing in your market? Has anybody ever monetized what it actually costs you to take a listing? All the different things that you spend money on to make that listing go from an appointment that you've had, a listing appointment, all the way to turning it on in the MLS as being active and ready for people to come see it.
Yeah, like your marketing dollars, like.
Mm-hmm. What's your cost? What's your cost on that, right? What is your operating expense for a listing?
Well, I'll tell you this, for me, when I take a listing, for each one of my listings, I have $250 to $500 that I spend on that listing. When I first get the listing, I send out just listed cards. I also have a professional photographer take pictures. I also have somebody to go and do my measurements for me. I use Rosalind Bryant. So so just what you're saying right here is something that I've been really breaking down on how much money I spend on each listing. And that's something, and Joyce probably is good at that also, because she helped me when I lost the listing in like 30 days. She's the one who told me that she had something in her listings that she'll say, if you take this listing away from me, you have to pay me back this amount of money. Ooh, which is something that I'm going to add to my listing package.
Okay, so when you're successful at monetizing, and here's just some of the categories that I went through with my business here in Mandeville and Covington. So it's the time of lead generation to even get the listing appointment, right? How much time did you put into that? The appointment itself, the appointment prep time, and whether or not you've really taken a long, hard look at the neighborhood. You've done a CMA before you actually go to the listing appointment, right? Like you're getting educated to be able to bring value to that person you're going to talk to. What does it cost to do the MLS entry, the command entry, professional photos, your sign, your lockbox? Do you have a stager? Do you have other types of marketing like video, especially with the environment that we're in? Mm-hmm. So all of those things combined, you should come up with a number that makes sense to you. And if you're successful in delivering all of those things to somebody that you sit down to and show them everything, your success rate about being able to take a 6% listing should go up, right? Because you've monetized the value that you're bringing. So if you've been to any of my classes, I always talk about the 3 things that you do with every conversation. You consult, which is the needs analysis. You're listening to what the person sitting in front of you needs to describe to you as an ultimate win to them in the service that they're going to get into contract with you on. And once you've extracted that properly, then you're going to coach and say, okay, here's why you need to work with me, because I can make what you just described as a win happen at a really high level. And then all throughout the transaction, you're going to train them. You're going to train them, right, as to how they need to think all the way through.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have a copy of that sheet that you provide to in your listing presentation that breaks down those items for the client?
So I don't actually show them that page. I use it as my cheat sheet just to make sure that I don't miss anything, because I don't necessarily want them to monetize it. What I want them to know is all about the value, because people can monetize things however they want. And it might be that I don't say anything that they didn't already expect.
Do you have that sheet that you can provide for agents so we could use it as a guide for our models?
I think there is a version. So I need to think about that, because some of the things that I have on there may not be appropriate for everybody. And I have to be real careful about what I share, but it's a great question.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to talk to Jody about that, and we're going to put our heads together and say, what would that look like? Is that okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
What about, hey, Jeremy, what about, Joyce, are you there? What about the The sheet that you
Yeah, I'm here.
use when you are, yeah. So what about the sheet that you use when you are, putting your budget together, your expenses together for every listing that you go on? Like, would you be willing to share your sheet? Is that possible?
I don't really have anything that is in writing. I could make something. It's easy enough. I mean, do it enough.
Yeah.
I could make something, no
put
problem.
that in your listing agreement. You just put that on your listing agreement when you're
I
in
do it
there?
on it. I do it on an addendum, and the only time I bring that up is if they say, "Oh, it's getting to get loud in here, y'all." Oh, well, what if it don't sell in 3 months? Then I do an addendum to the listing agreement and have them sign it that this is what you owe me.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree. In each one of my listings, I keep a copy of all the expenses I spend on each one of the listings. I have all the receipts because I've had to fight, sellers before. And then I present it and say, well, if you want to pull out of this listing ahead of time and withdraw for whatever reason, not reasonable to me, obviously, then I send them immediately a copy of all my expenses that I've, spent on that particular listing.
So Rianda, there's some best practices there for you from 2 incredible agents, right? So take a look at that.
Jeremy,
This question is also meant to, yes, please.
I think what Jeremy was saying about not maybe perhaps itemizing it within your listing presentation, be cautious of that, because if you start itemizing what you're doing, what your marketing plan is, and how much it's costing you, that may cause some of your sellers, depending on their personality and their analytical brain, to start saying, okay, well, if you're only expensed this much, why am I paying you more? So be cautious on what you're sharing, how much that actually costs you, right? You can detail it out to say, these are the marketing strategies I'm going to use, yet maybe not share how much that actually costs.
Okay, well, my question is actually for my analytical brain. Because I just wanted an idea, because I didn't think about adding like the lockbox cost on my economic model for a listing, or adding the sign cost, just mentally breaking that down for me, but knowing that that is the value that I add. So personally, when I go in a listing presentation, I always come from contribution and I'll offer them something. So I'll say, I'll pay for pictures or staging, and then you'll reimburse me at the closing. So I have an idea of what, I was putting out for each listing in that regard, but not necessarily taking an inventory of what my time I spent on going to preview homes in that neighborhood to prepare for that listing appointment, as if that was, that added value to that listing. That's just something that I did on my own in order to prepare for that listing. So not necessarily to give it to them, but just mentally to take inventory of all of the work that I put in to get that listing.
No, that's well said, Randa. And I think the point of this question is to stimulate the type of dialogue that we're having right now, and ultimately to come to the conclusion of what's the danger of taking a bad listing.
Right.
Right. And it's going to cost you something. So people who just rapid fire take listings no matter what, that's not a great model. So if you know you're $100,000 out of whack from what something would sell for, and that seller has their heels dug in and says, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to sell for anything less than this, you might need to consider whether or not you walk from that one, right? So it's a difference of mentality of saying, I want to go investigate if I want to take this listing versus I have to take this listing, right? It's a better business model to follow. It's more, it's going to give you better returns. You're going to have a better success rate. Your seller is going to be more happy with you, right? That you're aligned. So in that chain that I gave you of consult, coach, and train, the consultation, I'll use my old medical background for a moment. When a doctor consults a new patient and is checking out whether or not they had a spinal issue that he or she could fix in the world that I used to work in, they would try to ascertain that and say, okay, you do have something I can fix or you don't. And that consult's the most important step, to extract that from that patient. Because from that point out, you're going to be coaching them in a certain direction and training them in a certain direction. It's really no different here. Okay? You're the professional. You're the one who's consulting the patient, who is the seller or the buyer. And then you're ultimately getting them to see how they can achieve their goal. And it's got to be their goal, by the way, not the one that you've created in your head. Okay? Okay. All right. So here is our basic worksheet on this. And I know this looks convoluted, so for those of you who don't like math very much, just breathe through it for a second. Okay? So, Liz, since you decided that you were going to step up and be my guinea pig on this, and I appreciate it. Yes. So, what we're going to do together here is to go through a couple of things on how to, before COVID-19 hit, in the average sales price that we were working through, right? We're going to take a look at what it would take to net close to $1 million in profit with the average sales price of our market center and the environment that we were in. Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, so just to let you know, so everybody have a pen and paper ready, and let's just write some of these things down so you can understand. And I'm going to coach to the millionaire mindset, which is what I showed you on the triangle a couple of slides back. We're going to think like a millionaire right now. Okay, so some of these numbers are going to be really big, and they should inspire you to stretch your brain and go, wow, that's different. Okay, now whether or not you ever get to earning $1 million in a 12-month period is up to you. What I hope you do, though, is that over a whatever amount of period, you do earn $1 million. And then once you get there, start thinking about how you can compress time. So if it takes you 20 years to earn $1 million, great. After that, try to think about how you can earn your next $1 million in less time. And that's what these 4 models are meant to teach. Okay? All right. So the average sales price for our office is $175,000. So write that down. And if you were to close 457 units, write that down. So 457 times 175,000 equals 80 million in closed sales volume. So those are the real numbers in our environment that would have to happen for you to earn $1 million. Now, that's taken into account that every one of your 457 closed units were at 3% commission income, which probably is not reality for most people. Okay? So let's just say that you could average it at 2.75 average commission percent. That's what would go. So we already talked about your net income goal of $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to talk about cost of sales and operating expenses. And then we're going to talk about gross commission income that's required to get there. So we talked about that. The gross commission income that's required at 2.75 on that many units and that much closed sales volume would be $2,200,000 for you to net $1 million that you would take home with you. So $2,200,000 would be what would go here. Okay? And then we're going to split that number out between being on the seller side and the buyer side. Either way, here and here. Mm-hmm. Okay? And here's what we know. You would need to take you would need to sell 15 listings, and you would need to be on the buyer side for 15 closings. So 15 plus 15 is what?
30.
Okay, and 30 times 12 magically is 457. All right, so basically 30 closed units per month would get you to 457 closed units. Now, the conversion ratios for MREA 2 have been changed slightly. Everything is at a 75% conversion rate. So if we know that we need to close 15 listings and we need to close 15 buyers every month to equal 30 closed units, that would mean that you, at any given moment, you would need to take 20 listings every month, and you would need to put 20 contracts down on buyers that are looking to buy. So that means you need 40 pieces of business written every month to equal that amount of closings. All right, let's take it a step further. If you know that you needed 40 contracts total to get to these numbers, and at a 75% conversion ratio, that means that you would need to go on 27 listing appointments and 27 buyer consultation appointments. That's 54 appointments a month. Somebody tell me what 53 divided by 20 is.
2.65.
Okay, so roughly 3 appointments a day. Who physically could do 3 appointments a day without losing their mind?
Me.
Yeah. So the activity, when you break it all the way down to what it would take to earn $1 million, the amount of appointments to go on is not the hard part.
No.
The hard part is how much lead generation did you have to do to generate 3 legit appointments like that every day?
Right.
And that's where you have to get into your own numbers and say, what types of powerful conversations am I having? Here's what I describe to be a powerful conversation. You're talking to somebody on your sphere. You've had an opportunity to ask them about how their family's doing through COVID-19. You've asked them about how they're handling their at-home schooling. You're going through everything you can think of just to check in on them. And then you know that everybody in your sphere should fall into one of 4 categories, right? They could either be a buyer, they could be a seller, they could be an investor, or they could be someone who refers you to somebody else, right? They can fall into one of those 4 categories. So a question that I like to ask is, so Liz, I'll use you as my guinea pig again. So Liz, I'm glad to hear your family's good. So we're going to role play for a second, okay? So glad to hear your family's good. Just a quick question for you. I know that you're probably not in the market right now to buy or sell. Are you in the market to maybe invest right now with maybe how housing prices might change?
Absolutely. I think this is probably the best time, considering that the prices are low, the interest rates are low. I think this is probably the best time to take advantage of where that's affordable. It seems to be more affordable right now.
Love that. So, and also, I imagine there's others who probably think that way, who have some money and they're looking to see what they could get in this environment. Do you know of anybody else that would be interested in trying to figure that out?
Absolutely. I have several friends right now that we have wine dinners during the week, and we have a conversation about it. Real estate always comes up in the conversation. So, and yes, absolutely.
Love that. So when that conversation comes up, am I the person that you think of to call?
Absolutely. I would call you. You were brought up at the wine dinner the other night.
Awesome. I appreciate that a whole bunch. Okay. So when you're ready, let's get together and see what we can do to find you that first investment property. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and share my app with you that's brand new that would allow you to search with near ML, I don't know exactly what I'd say at that point because I've said about 30 different ways.
On real time, it's real time.
Yeah, that's right. It allows you to search on real time. So I'm getting pretty heavy into this, right now, but you can see where this can go. The main question that I always try to get to is, am I the one that you're going to call when you're ready? With either buy, sell, or invest. And then I can get to some referrals as we work, right? So that to me is a powerful conversation to have. And for me, the conversion ratio of a conversation that goes that well, where there's an opportunity there, either immediately or down the road, my conversion ratio of that to something that turns into something that would happen in the next 30 days is about 5 to 1. Okay? So I need to have 5 of those to generate one really good conversation that would turn into something that happens in the next 30 days. So what I would challenge everybody to do on your conversion ratio, and this is where lead generation to conversion ratio really matters, and we'll get to that in a second, is to figure out, are you having that type of a powerful conversation with your sphere where you're getting an opportunity to talk about what you do, and most importantly, are you still top of mind for them? Or did their sister all of a sudden get into real estate and you didn't know that? Because there's nothing worse than hitting your sphere of someone that you thought you were their agent with everything in our 36 touch, and they're like, I am just sick and tired of getting everything from Liz. She's not even who I'd use. So you've got an opportunity to iron that out. Does that make sense? Anybody have anything that would add to that?
I think just touching on what you said, when you're talking to your sphere and you're prospecting, or you're just networking, or you're just generally talking to somebody about real estate or what you do, when we're able to show them the technology that we have and actually send them that app, or just giving them some kind of added value, we're giving them something that right away they're like, wow, okay. Yeah. I mean, that's like the open door right there. It already is the first step of building that relationship, because they're like, wow, she took her time and she's actually giving me something, providing me with something that's a really positive tool to use. I use it a lot. I've had it on my phone for a long time. I think it's a great tool for the buyers and anyone I'm talking to, because majority of the time you can keep them on your auto email as much as possible, but they're not always going to find something there. But when they're driving around, you can't be driving around with them all the time. They just open their phone, they find something, and immediately they think about you, they call you.
Love it. And the instructions that I give on using the app are very simple. I share it with them via text, tell them to download it. And then I say, okay, when you get everything set up, just hit guide, and it'll do just that for you from there. I don't tell them anything else. Because right there from that point, it says, are you a buyer or are you a seller? Right? And it takes them through from there. And the whole thing is set up to do that. And I know that the current version of the app doesn't have a whole lot of individual agent branding on it right now. That is by design. When KWRI did a lot of research as to what does the population want in the app, they want it to, number one, look just like Zillow, which it does. And number two, they don't want it to be cluttered with a bunch of our advertisement for our own personal brand. I have a feeling that once we get it out there to a lot of different people, that will change. Okay? All right. Questions about this?
I just wanted to say too, Jeremy and everybody else, I think I was on one of the calls that I was listening to. I don't know if it was James Shaw or maybe another coach out there, but that conversational piece that you have just relative to the conversion rate right now, just converting for those sellers that are straddling the fence right now, just trying to figure out whether they should put their properties on the market. A good conversational piece that we can open up is just ask them, well, what do you think about the market right now? Like, how do you feel about the market? And just, it was some questions that I wrote down, and you know, just to ask them, what do they think about the market? How do you feel about it? And then open up that conversation and show them basically, you know, that right now people still really are putting their properties on the market, and properties are being sold right now. Things are going under contract right now. And that'll open them up to just think wider and bigger, and have a more open mindset. Yeah, it is okay right now to go ahead on and put your property on the market.
Love that. And we were on Ignite step 3 today with Sage, and her and Tonda, Stephanie Morris, and DeQuantas did some amazing scripts and role play around that, and how to structure your scripts to where they are relevant to what's going on today.
Love that. That's powerful. Okay, so jumping from that to lead generation. So if you remember that slide that I had, how all four of these were interconnected. So once you know the activity and your conversion rate at a very basic level of how many conversations do you have, and how many powerful ones does that lead to, and then what time frame does that powerful conversation go? So somebody's either going to tell you, yeah, I'm ready now, or I'm ready later. And then you start stacking people into wherever they said their time frame would be. And I usually try to get them to tell me, what does that look like, right? Okay, so lead generation. So it builds off what you discovered in the economic model. Leads are the fuel of your economic engine. Truth. Somebody read that.
You can never have enough good leads. Never.
Okay, so that's the base of the pyramid, right?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
I can't overemphasize this sentence enough. However many leads you think you have and you think you're doing a great job with it, you could always do better. And that's the pathway to building a bigger business if that's what you want. Okay. All right. 3 key areas of lead generation model: prospect and market, set up database and feed it, and systematically market to your database. Okay. Does everybody understand those 3 concepts? Do we need to dig deep into any of those 3?
No, I understand.
Okay. So who feels like they do a lot of great lead generation based on this slide?
Allied Resources one-on-one.
I do a little, not a lot.
Okay.
Mainly from my lenders.
Mm-hmm. So the arrangement of what falls where on this archery target is actually very, very important. And I actually had Gary Keller put this up in front of us to say, does anybody understand why Allied Resources one-on-one is at the center of the target? I didn't really know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
He said, okay, so here's what I did when I first started out as an agent. I went and took every title attorney, every loan officer, every appraiser, every inspector that I could find to lunch. I didn't have too much money, but I went and just generated as many engagements with them. And by the way, they're not used to having agents call them and say, would you like to go to lunch on me? So everybody probably has a allied resource of different disciplines that are your favorite. What would it look like if you were the one who took the initiative to build that relationship on your dollar rather than theirs? Because they're very used to having to come and build their brand on their dollar. And what Gary said is you should get at least 1 closing per year from every allied resource that you build a big relationship with.
Yay, I did that.
All right. So he thinks that for the amount of time that you spend on this has the most bang for its buck. So if you spent a lot of time there building relationships with allied resources, and you put together 10 or 20 of them that you've got great relationships with, that could be 10 or 20 closings a year, just right there. You've capped or more, just with the inner circle. You don't have to go any further out, not to your SOI at all. If you just nailed that, you would cap. Just that one lead generation model. Does anybody do that at a high level right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell me about that.
I always reach out to them. I always call. There's only a few because I have that relationship really tight with those few. And I do call and I take them to lunch, Christmas or what have you. I don't wait for them to, send me something or give me something or what have you. I always send them, whether it's a basket of fruit or something, just something, but I always reach out, and I've reached out to every one of them during this multiple times.
That's
just to check on them.
And do you think that's a great way to make sure that you're always top of mind to them?
Oh yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And does it turn in, Joyce, and I don't know if you've tracked it a whole lot, but does it turn into at least one closing per affiliate per year at a minimum?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, at a minimum,
okay.
Yes.
And it's probably more than that, right? For some, right?
Yeah. And I mean, and you because you always know that these companies, whoever they should be, the affiliate, they have many agents, realtors that, they do business with, that sends them business or what have you. So I always try to make sure that, I don't care who else is sending you business, call me,
Hey, Albert, how are you?
And they do.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. So would you even go so far, Joyce, to say that that's a foundation of your business?
Most people? Know yes. If we have you mean like a test bank of questions?
I don't think she knows that she's not on mute.
Yeah. Can somebody, Katie, could you mute Jody for me? Okay. So I didn't hear your answer to that, Joyce. Could you say it again?
Yes, I do think that that's a foundation of my business.
Okay. All right. So does that give some clarity as to why that's at the center of the target for everybody? And that you could, if you're brand new to real estate, that could be a great place to start, and that's why it's at the center. Okay, so the next group out from around that is your MET group, which is also called your SOI. For those of you who don't know the acronym, Sphere of Influence, right? Mm-hmm. Now, these are the people who you already know have given you the affirmative to that question that I asked Liz in that role play. That you know that you're their agent and there's nobody else. Okay? That's going to empower you to hit them with the 8x8, the 33 touch, or whatever it is now, the 3 million touch, right? Through command. And if you do that, the conversion ratio in general, what do we teach about what the conversion ratio should be for your MET group? Does anybody know what's in the red book? It's on page 137 if anybody wants to look at it.
Man, it still don't know.
Let's see, conversion rate, 137.
So I've actually got it written in. Most of the time we coach that it's a 12-to-2 ratio, and then you might ask yourself, well, why don't they just say that that's 6-to-1? What it really is one buyer and one seller for every 12 people that's in your sphere of influence.
What page is that, Jeremy? That's still 130? That's not 137. That would be what?
137 is the target.
Right.
I'm trying to remember which page had the yield of what you should get. Let me see if I can find it. Where are you?
trying to skim through it myself. That's okay. I'll just read from
Okay,
137.
as we go through, just if everybody just goes to page 137, I'll tell y'all what the conversion ratio should be. So we already know that you should get a 1-to-1 for the allied resource, and it's written on there, right? For every one that you have that you built a great relationship, you should get a minimum 1 closing a year out of. And then for people that are in your SOI, which is also called the MET group on this diagram, and by the way, you want to spend the majority of your time at the center of this bullseye. So the first 2 circles should be where you're getting almost all of your business from, like 90%. Okay? And if you're doing that at a really high level, that also means that type of lead generation is mostly free. Okay? So in the MET group, and you've clearly identified that person has identified you as their agent when they're ready, or they've already worked with you in the past and you still know that when they're ready, you're still their agent, right? For every 12 of those in your database in command, that should give you 2 closings, 1 on the buyer side, 1 on the seller side. So if you go back to the number that you've identified for your own economic model before of what you're trying to earn, you should be able to go into your database right now and say, okay, how many do I really have that have overtly told me that I'm their girl or I'm their guy when it comes to buy, sell, invest, or refer. And then on an annual basis, take that and divide it in on 12-to-2 ratio. You can do it 6-to-1 just to make the math easy, right? So for every 6, you should get 1 closing. Okay. Gary actually has a wrinkle on the target haven't met, because in the red book, it actually talks about that's how you prospect to those folks. But in reality, he actually likes to think of that target of being people that were referred by the circle on the inside. So the MET group is 12-to-2. The target group haven't met. If you just treated that circle as being people who are referred to you from the circle inside in the MET group, and you haven't met them yet, just that person said you ought to call Susie, right? The conversion ratio on that is 20-to-2. Again, why wouldn't you just say 10-to-1? Well, it's 1 buyer, 1 seller for every 20 that you get. And here's why it's not higher than that. How many of you have gotten a referral and you call and they're like, oh, Liz is crazy. I'm not really interested in doing any real estate right now, but thank you so much for the call. It happens, right? And it might be that people in your MET group know that you're going to ask that question after a while, and they just want to give you a name, right? Who knows? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the conversion ratio for that is not as high as people in your sphere of influence. But it's still pretty good. Now, there's also a lot of information in the red book about what the target group haven't met really is. But that was just something that Gary sprinkled in there that you could use that as a way to track referrals. All right, and then that last one, the general public haven't met, that's just general prospecting and marketing. The conversion ratio for that is 50-to-1. So that would be internet leads, that would be Facebook leads, that would be whatever the case may be. So where do you want to build the foundation of your business?
Ally Resources.
Ally Resources.
Inside out, right?
Inside
On
out.
this target, inside out. For whatever reason, I have found that agents built their business just the opposite, outside in. They got into heavy prospecting and marketing and thought that that was the absolute way to do it. Maybe they're right to a degree in that if you did just any one of these and that's all you did, maybe you could bring that conversion rate better to 50-to-1. But I don't know that it's the smartest way to go about this, especially when this whole model is around working it from inside out. Okay? Questions on this?
Jeremy, just real quick, what is the conversion rate for Allied Resources? I caught on like right
So
when you were.
at a minimum 1-to-1 for everyone that you feel like you've got a good relationship and you've actually spent the time and the money and the effort
right. Okay.
to build that relationship, you should get it a
Okay.
minimum 1 closing a year from
Okay. Thank you.
now. And then we go to 12-to-1, 12-to-2, sorry, for Met Group. And then if you treat the target group hadn't met as actually referrals from the Met Group, that should be 20-to-2.
All right.
Then general public hadn't met 50-to-1.
50-to-1. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Does that add some clarity as to how to spend your time on lead generation and where? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That was an aha for me. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And here's all the ways, right? I think a good exercise here with this, and this isn't in the red book, by the way, so don't look for it on page 36. This actually came out of KWU with a class that I took. But it's probably in the red book somewhere. I just don't remember exactly what page. But I think this is updated to add some things that maybe wasn't in the red book to begin with. But if you could go through this and kind of rank yourself as to which one of these activities are you really okay with. Go ahead and give yourself like a 5 in the ones where you're like, yeah, I could do that really easily. If hosting an open house is just your jam and you're awesome at it, give yourself a 5 there. If knocking on doors is your thing, give yourself a 5. And then the opposite could be true. If calling an expired listing is like, makes you start sweating before you even start calling, give yourself a 1 in that one, right? Spend time where you're good. Spend 80% of your time on things that you're comfortable with when it comes to lead generation and see what that gets you. Okay? Questions about that?
Nope, like the list.
Okay. All right, so when we focus on seller listings, what are the 2 advantages that come out of that?
Here you go, economic advantage and lead generation advantage.
Okay, so what does the first one mean? What kind of an economic advantage do you have from being on the lister side?
I guess on the listing side, you are more, you have the better chance of making that income off of that listing because you have the contract for that certain amount of time that it's on the market. And generally, it's percentage of another realtor bringing you the buyer is what usually where around 80, above 80%, 90% is whatever that percentage is.
Mm-hmm.
You guarantee that someone's probably going to bring you maybe more than one buyer.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do agency as well.
That's right. That's another great one, Samantha. Glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
What do you get to control what the commission percent is when you're on the listing side?
Absolutely.
Yes, you do. Yes.
So that's another big economic advantage, right? You have a much better chance of making 3% or more if you're on the listing side, whether, instead of working just strictly with buyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the lead generation advantage? You kind of touched on it, Liz, a little bit. Anybody else have something they could add to that?
Well, certainly you can pick up more leads from being on the listing side. Gives you.
Well, the chances are that because for whatever reason, there's a percentage of buyers out there that don't understand the dynamics of our business. So even if they may have a realtor, sometimes they don't have a realtor, they tend to come to your open house or they tend to call you as the listing agent first because they're interested in that house. Mm-hmm. So they show up and you have a chance of picking up a new buyer if they're not being represented. Whether Absolutely. It's through agency or it's to buy another home. If it's not that listing because it didn't work out, then you have an opportunity to build a relationship with them and help them find another property.
Love that. So I'll share just a personal experience of back to this list right here. This was never my thing until I started to have success in taking listings. and then I would door knock X amount of houses on either side of the listing that I was getting ready to put a sign in the yard and say, hey, I'm Jeremy Champagne. I'm getting ready to list this house at 123 Main Street. That's your neighbor. Was just wanted to give you that information first and say, do you know of anybody that's in your family or friends that you've always wanted to be on your street? Here, this is what I'm getting ready to do with this house down the street. Do you know of anybody who wants to buy it right now? Right? And that way you get an opportunity to give them the courtesy of, I think a lot of people would like to sort of control who ends up moving on their street if they could, especially if they got lots of friends that they would like to have on their street. Mm-hmm. So I've gotten like really good feedback on that. Like, first of all, thank you for letting us know. Yeah. And you could get a reaction of, oh, really, they're leaving? Or you get a reaction of, oh, really, they're leaving? That's great. You know, like you don't know what you're going to get, right? So it kind of gives you some information. And then they might be able to tell you like, yeah, you know, when our street had this happen 6 months ago, I can see why they want to leave. Like they might be able to give you something that maybe that seller wasn't really open and honest about. Like, yeah, did you know that a tree fell on their house back in November and they had to completely rebuild their kitchen?
Well, they absolutely.
No, they didn't tell me that. Okay, great. I'm glad I came and talked to you, right? So that's worked for me, and I've picked up some business because of that, just because I had the listing original. Okay. So and the truth of the matter is that a millionaire agent builds their lead generation model around generating seller listings for the reasons that you guys just unpacked. Okay, when you're in control of that, you're in control of the market. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I'm just trying to make sure we're all on the same page. All right, who would like to say that budgets are their favorite thing to do?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
I'll put my hand way up in the air. Am I the only one?
Many people
I like budgets. I like budgets. You know who really hates me talking about budgets more than anybody?
Your wife?
Dawn Champagne. There is no doubt. Absolutely hates it, right? Especially in the environment we're in right now, where I'm just like, I want you to realize that we have some uncertainty about what's going on, and I need you to pull back all spending. She's like, okay, well, does that mean that I'm like, I can't be any more clear than this. If we can't eat it, we are not buying it. Or if it doesn't wipe some part of our body, we're not buying it.
You can find it.
That's it, right? That's it. So it's just a real clear, I've never had an easier budget to make. If it's not a consumable or something that wipes my body down or cleans me or cleans my teeth or something like that, we're not buying it. Real plain and simple. There is no other discussion. But Jake needs new. No, he doesn't, because he's not even going to school right now. He doesn't need new shoes. Sorry, he doesn't have to wear shoes to school. He just sits at the kitchen counter.
Samantha, you don't need a new purse, girl.
That's right.
They on sale, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's really like, this is the most basic budget model I could ever do for my house. It's great. So take that as, okay, so I just kind of got funny there. Just take it to a step closer to your business. Has everybody had a chance to log on to KW Connect and watch some of the great videos that are on there about how to strip down your operating expenses on your personal budget and on your business budget? They're real good, y'all. People who are way more talented speaker than I could ever be, and they've got a lot of experience on how to do this. They actually survived through the last shift. They saw what they had to do and what they learned from it and what we could do now. So again, go to KW Connect, look for anything that talks about cutting expenses or budget, and take a look at some of those videos. They're real good. Okay. So the budget model comes in as the third model in our path around that circle. And your budget model is about understanding what happens to your income once you earn it. Okay. 3 areas to focus on: lead with revenue, spend only money your business has generated. Let me say that again: spend only money that your business has generated. We do not run a business model of if you build it, they will come. That's not what we do. Don't sit there and put all this extra capital into something that's not generating business, okay? Play red light, green light. Hold the money you're spending accountable for results. So if you are going to invest some of the money from the commissions that you've already made into something new, hold it really accountable for making sure that you're making money back off of that. And Gary actually uses the 9-to-1 ratio. For every dollar you invest in something, you better be making $9 back in commission income. Okay, does everybody know that ratio, or was that new?
That's new.
Okay, it used to be less than that, but now that we have such a heavy virtual technology-driven platform, he thinks it should be 9-to-1. Okay, all right. And then stick to the budget. This is probably the hardest part for most people. They do all this great work. They slash, they hold everything accountable, and then over time, they just, well, they're human. They turn into a spender again. All right, if any of you have taken my Profit First class, what does that whole cash flow system work with? It works with the human condition. And for whatever reason, we get like a personal high when we spend money. That's why people have such a trouble with budgeting, because it's so much fun to buy something. What he teaches you to do in Profit First is you actually start having more fun when you're cutting expenses than when you're buying. That's when you know that you flip that switch in your brain. Right? Okay. Questions about any of these three? Who feels like they've gone to mastery on this with what's happening to us in our business model right now?
I'm working on it. I don't think I'm spending very much right now.
Okay.
I think we all cutting back right now.
Yep. Okay. So take whatever your personal expenses to run your household and the expenses to run your business, strip those down by a minimum of 20%. Minimum of 20% in the month of April. And then when you get to May, do it again. That's the part that can really get you to where you need to be. It's not just making that first cut. And that first cut is the deepest one. Make no mistake about it, just trying to get your mind wrapped around things that you have to let go. So in Profit First, they tell you to identify either personal expenses or business expenses in the 3 different buckets. One is you can't live without, or you can't operate your business without. You've got to have an active license through the LREC. You've got to be a member of the board, right? And in your personal expenses, you have to eat. You have to pay your house note, things like that. Then you have a second category, which is there's a really high rate of return on that expense. Like at a minimum, you're getting that true 9-to-1 ratio. For every dollar you invest in that service, whatever it is, you really are getting $9 back, and you've played red light, green light with it, and it's an acceptable expense. And then there's a third one that doesn't meet that criteria. And that's just a want to, and it doesn't, you're almost afraid to play red light, green light with it because you just like it so much, right? So where you should be right now is you should be cutting anything that's in that third bucket, period. And then you really need to evaluate things that fit into that middle bucket and see if the environment that we're in is still supporting it. Okay, questions about that? Okay. All right, so here's the budget model of a graph that's based on closed sales volume and expected gross commission income. Now again, the closed sales volume that's at the top that says 6 million, 10 million, 18 million all the way across. The corresponding GCI underneath it is based on an average of 3%. So it's never going to be that high, but that's kind of like the ceiling that you should be shooting for, that you're making that much if you sell that much in gross commission income. Cost of sales is your cap and royalty, and in this model, it's $21,000. For us, what is the cost of sales at our office?
107. Cost of sales.
18.5.
18.5.
18.5. A little bit less than this one, right? Okay. So gross profit would be your cost of sales of 18.5 minus whatever your gross commission income is above. And the percentage that they want you to be at if you're under 6 million is 88%. Okay? And then you're going to subtract out expenses of what it costs to run your business. And that should be no more than right around 30%. And then what you're left with in net income, this is money you got to take home and live off of, was 55% at a minimum. Some of you may be even better at managing your expenses to where it's not that high, where it's not really a third of your gross commission income. That's great. At a minimum, I'd like to say that everybody should be around 55 or 60% of profitability if you're selling at or under 6 million in closed sales volume. That's what the model is in this. And if you're not there, then I would highly task you to go after this line item right here and say, what's really happening here? How much am I really spending? And if it's more than this number, then you know that you're out of balance, because that's going to negatively impact you. Okay? Now, as you sell more, things change, right? So your cost of sales is still just your cap and royalty at this level. And usually this is right around the time where people start to say, I don't know that I can do any more by myself. Right around this number of 10 million in closed sales volume in the average market. It's pretty tough to really grow beyond that by yourself, okay? So your gross profit is here, your expenses are here, and this is what you're taking home. Okay? In order to go to another level above that, you notice what happens is a big change. Cost of sales is now including people that are on your team and what they're making of gross commission income that you're paying them. Or if they're on the administrative side, what are you paying them in salary? Okay? So you subtract that out. If you're up around 18 million, subtract that out and you should be about at 80% gross profit. And then another 30% taken out of expenses. Now you fall into 50% of profitability. So you see what happens actually as you go to a larger business model? What happens to the percent of profitability? You spike right here, and then what happens over the course of time?
Decreases.
Yep. And that's okay as long as this number is going up, right? But it would be really cool to maintain 50% if you're here. So at a minimum, Gary talks about the 40-30-30 model. So when you're running a big business where you're selling somewhere in this range, you want to be somewhere around 40% of net income. You want to be somewhere around 30% in expenses and somewhere around 30% of cost of sales. 40, 30, 30. And if you remember what I taught about profit first, how you should always put it in your mind that way, that these numbers here are non-negotiable. You have to make that profitability happen in that environment. And then that means you have to learn how to operate off of whatever remains. Okay? So draw a line in the sand for most of us who are here. Draw a line in the sand that you should be taking home 55 to 60% of this number. Make that an immovable object, and then learn how to operate off of this and this being taken out. Now, Profit First teaches you how to move to that. So if you run your own numbers and you find out that this number is a lot lower than this, like you're operating at like 40% or something like that, don't try to make that 15% change all in 1 month. That's going to hurt too much. So call me if you want to. For anybody who's on the call right now, call me if you want to, and we'll go through the process of getting this corrected, okay? I offer that free coaching anytime y'all want to call me. I love the budget model. I'll say it again. If I'm the only one who loves it, y'all call me, okay? All right.
Jeremy, you're talking to women, all right?
Well, so hey, I love to find a way to bring value to you guys, because there isn't much that I can teach you, but if I can help you with this and help you keep more of your money and you didn't have to sell more real estate, that's win-win, right?
That's why I guessed it was his wife in the beginning.
Don't you buy that bag of potato chips. You don't need that.
That's right. That's right. So, and look, I've even gone so far. She's like, well, I'm just buying new makeup. I'm like, sweetheart, you haven't worn makeup in a week. No one sees you. Well, but nothing.
Probably a month, yeah.
Seriously, no, you don't need that makeup, right? Yeah, well, I didn't win that battle, by the way. But I think I've won a lot of them. It's been good. I'm stretching out what we have to work with. Okay. Organizational model, and we got 3 minutes left, so I apologize for that. Y'all can stay on with me a little bit longer if you want to. If you need to jump off, please do. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay, somebody read that.
You do all you can, go as far as you can go, get all the results you can get, and can't go any further on your own. It's time to look for help.
Okay, welcome to the organizational model.
Okay, Jeremy, can I ask you to cover something while you're doing this model? Because I was going to ask you on the last budget model, because as you showed it with 6 million in sales, you don't have an assistant. It went all the way over. So when do you start paying for leverage?
Understood. That's a great question. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Deidre. I'll go back to that and say, and I think I said it, but if I didn't, I apologize, that most agents, when they get here, is when leverage starts to become a priority. So at here, you're running a pretty good practice, making some pretty good money, and taking home 100 grand. All right, that's good. And most people can do that. It's about, in our average sales price, that's about 24 sides, maybe 30, right? And then to get here, you're probably doing upwards of, how many sides would that be for 10 million, right? You're starting to tap out. You're up around 40 or 50 sides that you're doing at that level. And it starts to get pretty challenging to be able to lead generate through that and keep your activities going that will keep this going at a high level. So I think I'll get to that in this, but thanks for giving clarity on that. I appreciate it. Okay, so the 3 key areas for organizational model. When doing all you can, hire administrative help first. There is such a need to rush to having somebody help with your buyers. But in this environment, they're going to be doing a lot of things virtual. Please don't do that. Please don't make that mistake of hiring an agent to help offload some of your buyers as your first hire. That's not what it says to do in the Red Book. Okay, there is an order of operations to this that's really important. So do not, I repeat, do not try to get creative the first time you do this, or you will learn through experience that, yep, the model's right. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, some of you might have already tried that. Okay, number 2, hire talent, someone that challenges you to get better. The way I see this, I hire people all the time at both of my market centers that I operate that are way better than me at what I'm asking them to do. So that's what it means when you hire talent. You knowingly grab someone and say, you're really good at that, aren't you? Okay, you want to come do that in my business because I'm not as good as you, and I need that to be able to take the next step. You have to be unafraid. You got to put your ego aside. You got to do whatever validity that you're getting from those activities that you know you have to put down and let your administrative help do. And that administrative person has to have the confidence in themselves to very creatively, or whatever it takes, guardrail you back into your lane of lead generation. They should be someone who's strong enough to say, what are you doing trying to do this for me right now? Why are you doing that on command? Why are you doing that on whatever? Why aren't you on the phone talking to your sphere? Like, they got to push you back into lead generation mode at all times when you're trying to say, but I'm really good at doing this too, and I don't mind taking that off of you, Mr. or Mrs. Administrative Help. I mean, I do it better than you anyway. No, you don't. And if you do, then you hired the wrong person. Any questions on that? When I have fierce conversations with agents that are at that $10 million or $8 million spot, and they know and they've tried to hire administrative help, in every case, they've pretty much told me that they hired somebody that they could manipulate, not the other way around. Like they felt like they were in control of that person and that person couldn't challenge them. That's the wrong person to hire. You've got to hire someone who is unafraid and qualified and you think really highly of, that can challenge you to go lead generate and let everything else alone. It's really important. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. Train and consult. So we already talked about how this is what you do every day. What you're always going to do with your administrative help is you're always going to be training and consulting them through every process that you hand off to them. You need to train them how to do it, and then you need to be in constant coaching and consultation about what's working for you and what's not. You can't just train somebody how to do something and say, okay, moving on. No, you're constantly going to go back and inspect what you expect out of that person. I'm going to say that again. You're going to constantly go back and inspect what you're expecting out of that person and hold them accountable to it. Really talented people can't wait for you to inspect their work. Non-talented people hope you never ask. Okay? That's the difference in the red book between cul-de-sac talent and capacity. Everybody remember that? Okay? Okay. All right, so here's a dilemma that's in the red book that is a challenge, I think, because anybody who can take a real estate practice to a really high level, they've got a lot of personal drive. And in the DISC profile, we call that the D. You can take it on and you can go make it happen and will it into existence and breathe life into something that's never happened before. You're that strong of a human being. You can actually be the driver and make something happen. Okay? So here's the dilemma that you can face if you're really good at that. Somebody read that.
Leadership D. The lead agent provides most, if not all, of the drive to get things done. The success of the business is often solely based on the lead agent's leadership D.
Does that sound like a practice or a business?
Business.
In the definition that I gave before, it's actually more of a practice, meaning that if you don't show up and drive the business, it ain't going anywhere. Right? So that's leadership D, that everybody's just kind of looking at you that you've hired and said, well, I'm just going to do whatever they tell me to do. And they're the ones who always drive me to do what I'm doing anyway. Okay? Here's the other side of that. And this is where you get afforded the right to run a business rather than a practice. Somebody read that one.
A mature business bases their success on the quality and effectiveness of their infrastructure, systems, and tools. This type of business is one that a lead agent can fully leverage over time.
So just in case you're not aware, the market center model is no different than the organizational model for a rainmaker agent to build a business. As an operating principal, I'm a level 7 agent of the market center. I have completely leveraged almost all activities to my leadership team. My team leader is my CEO. She is level 6 in the MREA model. We have an administrative assistant in Nicole Miller. We have basically the equivalent of a lead buyer's agent and transaction coordinator in Katie Crow. Right? So everything is transferable as you go. And we also have systems and models in place and infrastructure in place to make it to where I have the ability to completely leverage the success of the business to them. If you ever want to be able to do that with your real estate practice and truly go to a business D format, the organizational model is what you have to master. And there's great tools that are at our disposal in career visioning, 30, 60, 90, success through others, right? These are all things that you can learn and put into place and build yourself through, okay? So always keep focus on the 3 L's through the growth of your organizational chart, meaning never add people in order to try to grow lead generation. You only add people when you've grown your lead generation. Some people reverse that flow too and think that if I just have more people on my team, there'll be more leads. It almost never works out. So you should be the one that's always lead generating and leveraging everything else to the people you hire. And that's the last thing you'd ever let go of. So let's take a look at that right here. I'm sorry, the quality of this slide is not the best. But if you're level 1 on the sales and marketing side and on the administrative and processing side, level 1, you're doing both, right? Okay. How many of you identify yourself as being level 1?
1.
Okay. All right. Then that means that for you to take a step to level 2 and hire your first person, you need to make sure that your lead generation that you're creating is causing gaps in your business. Meaning that at certain times of year, you get so busy listing and buying that you stop lead generating because you have so much administrative processing to do with all those deals that you're doing. And everybody has that point that they reach in knowing what they can service or how busy they want to be at any given moment. And then they stop. Like, how many of you ever said to yourself, if I get one more person who calls me to sell their house, I'm going to be like, God, I don't know if I can handle it. It happens. It happens from time to time, right? Like if one more person wants to buy another house and calls me and say, I want to go see 10 houses on Sunday, you'd be like, oh, okay, got it, right? Here we go. I guess I'm not sleeping Saturday night because now I got to do, got to do all that as well. So when you get to that point and you actively shut down, and maybe you're actually even referring some of those people away, and you're actually trying to say, okay, what could I do at those choke points in my business where I could keep those clients, or could be more effective at lead generating myself? That's when you hire this person. And it's the most important hire you'll ever make, because eventually this person turns into the director of operations of your entire business should you go bigger. Okay, so that's here. And here's what you do. You hire this person, they're keeping you in your lane, you're lead generating, they're handling everything on the back end for you, and things are really, really good, and you're selling almost twice as much real estate as you ever have before, because you've got the right person here doing that, and they're unafraid and they're very skilled at keeping you in your lane, which is over here, sales and marketing. They don't even let you come over here at all. You check on them, you inspect what you expect, but they don't let you really spend any appreciable amount of time in this category. Okay? What will happen at that point is that even the most talented person is going to call you at some point and say, you're doing a really good job with your lead generation and how many deals you're throwing my way, and I'm tapped out. Can I hire somebody to help me? And that's level 3. And by the way, this person is the one who's in charge of hiring that person, not you. Because remember, you've leveraged everything that's on this side of the equation anyway, right? Let it be their hire that they have to prove to you why they made the hire, but you're not doing the hiring. Make them go through career visioning with this person. And if you haven't done career visioning for anybody yet, the very last step is building a case as to why this person should be hired. And they have to sell that to you. Think how much time and energy goes into that you don't have to do. Okay. Once you get there, and this is a really well-oiled machine, and it's now causing you to even lead generate even more. This is where most businesses can be most profitable, and it's level 4. So it's you, it's someone that you've brought on board to help you, mostly on the buyer side, and then those 2 people that are in your back office working at a really high level. When you're here, Gary Keller said, in most markets, you should gross $1 million in commission income if you had the 3 right people working with you. Let me say that again. At level 4, you should gross $1 million in commission income. Now, I taught you the percentages already of what that would look like for what you would net. And I told you it was 40, 30, 30. So what's 40% of $1 million? Somebody tell me what's 40% of $1 million?
400.
400,000. So at level 4, at a minimum, you should be taking home 400 grand. And for some of you that have a big life that you're going for, and you're wanting to build your life by design, and you've already got a target of 200,000 or something north of that, this is really, really important to run this play through to get you there.
It's on page 202 in our book.
Yeah, I know. This is another thing that came out of a KWU. So it was just a better slide than what I could find at MREA. So I apologize for this. This is not accurate. Okay. But remember the 3 things that Gary said on that quote that he analyzes when he said his plateau? He analyzes his model, he analyzes his tech, and he analyzes his people.
It's people. Mm-hmm.
Right? So this one talks about people. So Deidre, am I adequately unpacking your question from before right now?
Yes, you are. Okay. And then I'm going to set up another coaching with you.
Okay.
My personal stuff and where
I'm
at.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, I'm here for any of you on unpacking your business on any of these 4 models. When it comes to identifying the numbers you have to hit in the economic model, to the lead generation that you have to do, and how to get real basic on how many conversations have to happen per day to support the economic model that you've already identified, to the budget model of how do you make sure you keep your money in check, to finally the organizational model. Okay? Now, level 5 and below gets really interesting. And I haven't really spent too much time in this space coaching anybody yet. This is about as far as I've gone coaching anybody right now, is level 4. And the explosion that happens from level 1 to level 4, I feel like is the sweet spot of agents who find big value in what our models and systems can do for them. Now, when you want to go from running a real estate practice to a real estate business that you could fully leverage over time and get to level 7 where you are here, if you take a look at this last picture here, where you're here and you have a CEO and they're running the entire business for you, and that's what you want to do, that's what you want to build in life, I'll take you there. I'll help you go there. Yes, ma'am, Deidre, I'll help you.
That's where I'm trying to go.
Right?
That's where I'm intending to go.
Absolutely. So level 5 is nothing more than adding people in the sales and marketing side to help cover the business that you have. And then also people on the back end, making sure that no phone call ever goes unanswered, right? Level 6, the last thing that you're doing as level 6 is working your sphere and doing listing appointments. somebody else is doing everything on the buyer side for you. And since we know that working with a buyer from a economic standpoint is a relatively easy sell, because the first thing you tell a buyer is, why wouldn't you work with me? I'm free, right? I'm free. Like, you're not paying for me, the seller is. So why wouldn't you let me help you, right? So when you're running a business through this, you want to keep working the listing side, because that person is paying you directly, and you never want to lose line of sight with all your listings. So level 6, that's what that looks like. All you're doing is working the listing side. And then level 7, if you identify somebody that's every bit as good as you could ever be, and they're hungry and they're ready to go, you're basically allowing them to run your entire business brand for you. And that's the 7 levels. So how do we do today?
Oh, this was an awesome day.
You did a great job. Thank you very much. I'm been saying that I wanted to get to the CEO level, and I know I need help getting there. And so I'm really looking forward to you coaching me to get there.
Hey, I'm here, and Jody's here for you as well. We're both here, okay? We can both help with anything that you're going through, but reach out to either one of us at any time, okay? But these are fun conversations to have, and they're not very lengthy, by the way. It's usually just kind of identifying one after another all the way through the cycle. Start with economic, go to lead generation, go to budget, go to organizational. And then once you've hit kind of your tap out point, now it's time to go back and re-identify a new economic model that will get you to grow. And then it's rinse and repeat. And that's what makes it scalable. Okay? So I would challenge everybody to really get into this, because every time I read the Red Book, I really do unpack something new every time. There's so much in there that if you read it for the first time, you're like, whoa, right? So give me some ahas, please.
I guess resources.
Allied resources.
Allied, yes, resources.
Our vendors.
Okay. And Liz, I didn't hear your first aha. Say that again.
My ahas is just a breakdown of how to get to the gross $1 million. I guess that put it more in perspective.
Okay. Absolutely. Anybody else?
Well, the aha for me is just working your business with the elbow model, just not all over the place, starting with economics, lead generating, budget, and then the organization aspect. So that was an aha for me.
Okay. Remember, we've all got 2 jobs. We're a realtor and we lead generate all the time, all the time, all the time. Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much. To be continued, as it's on there. Call me anytime. If you don't have my cell phone number, let me give it to you real quick. It's 504-232-3826. That's 504-232-3826. I need to come up with some kind of a good slogan, like one of the attorneys in New Orleans. Put the champagne on them, something like that, right?
Very good.
Right, that's right. So, guys, hey, appreciate y'all's time today. Be well. Let's keep everybody healthy. Let's check on each other consistently. And praise the Lord. I hope that He worked through me today to give y'all something that you can put into action and help you through this challenging time.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate
Thank you,
you.
Jeremy.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon.
Jeremy
Bye-bye.
hosted up the champagne wait.
Absolutely.
Bye.
There you go.
Bye.